Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Yeah, how you guys doing? Welcome to the Bonus 6, where we support military couples through all phases of partnership. I'm your host, Coach C, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. Whether you're starting out in a relationship or looking to deepen your connection, this podcast is here for you. Whew, thank y'all for bearing with me. This is my first podcast, so you might see a lot of my face in between the commercials. Please forgive me. I promise you I'll learn how to click this faster. But I have today with me a wonderful mentor, Amber, who has her own podcast called Into the Weeds over here at NBR.
Hello.
Thank you so much for supporting me on my first podcast.
You're welcome.
And I also have today with me the proof that I can speak about being in a military couple. Can you see? Yes, you can see this. This is the man of the house, unless he's drinking my slushy water. This is retired warrant officer Baxter, Sydney Baxter. Can you say hello?
Good morning, everybody.
Oh. So first, I would like to just share a verse, a Bible verse. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another. That is from Hebrews 10, verses 24 through 25. That is what I'm standing on, that anytime we encounter each other, we want to support each other and motivate each other. So, as former military members, we understand the unique struggles that come with balancing service and family. The Bonus 6 mission is to empower everybody to grow through transparency, patience, and community. Throughout this podcast, we'll feature a diverse mixture of guests, including fellow military couples and specialists in relationship dynamics. We're here to support you and remind you that you are not alone on this journey. All righty. So the lineup for today is we'll start by sharing some personal experiences with the military. And then Sydney and I will dive deeper into our backstory, as well as things that are helping us. We're not saying we're perfect, but we're definitely being more present in our relationship. And I think that everybody has things that you can share with people. You know, it's never about perfection, as long as you're being present and growing. So, all righty, let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about our military experiences. So, Sydney, since you are a guest to MBR, we'll let you start off. Why did you decide to join the military?
So my decision to join the military was, I always had a plan to join the military because my dad was in the military, and I looked up to my father quite a bit. I always wanted to be like him. But ultimately, when I made the decision, I was in junior college. I was an athlete. Life happened, and there was a need, and I put my wants aside, my athletic career, and was doing a couple of small different jobs, and things weren't working out. And I drove past the recruiter's office one day while going home from work, and pulled into the recruiter's office and told him I wanted to join. And that was that was it. It was pretty much as simple as that. I mean, there's a lot more detail to that, but ultimately, at that stage in my life, I just made a decision that this was what I needed to do.
Amber, same question. Why did you decide to join the military?
Okay, yeah. So I grew up in Lawton, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and so the Army or the military was just kind of part of my existence. My mom's house was only a mile from the gates, so and then my stepdad and my father were both in the Army. So it was just something that I was always raised around, and I knew I wanted to get out of Oklahoma. And so I knew that was my only way. And so I took that way.
Awesome. Yeah. For myself, I was raised pretty much as the only child, even though I had we had a blended family, but the other siblings were with the family. Um, and I got tired of everybody telling me what to do. So I was like, I want to run my own life. And I joined the military so then they can run my life.
I was about to say.
I know. Like, I'm gonna go be independent, do the things that I want. Yeah. So that's what happened with Charlene. I was trying to get out and be independent. Mm. So next question. What was your branch and what was your rate at MOS? Sydney, start us off.
So I joined the United States Navy. Go Navy. Uh, I joined the Navy nuclear power program. So
Mm.
went down to Orlando, Florida, where I did boot camp, and then I went straight from there to Nuclear Field A School, where I started on the machinist mate pipeline.
Mhm.
Amber, same question.
Okay, so I have a different military experience. I was only in a year. So I went into the Army. I was an E2 because I had had ROTC in high school. And I actually got hurt in basic training. And so I ended up going into a medical hold and getting a job there and doing drug screenings and making sure every soldier had a bed and taken care of.
Hey, that's wonderful. We certainly never mind. I'm gonna stop. So I was in the Hoo-Yah country, the Navy also. And I was also a nuclear machinist mate.
Mm.
That's not why I chose my spouse. um, and oh my goodness, my group was the first one to the new location for nuclear training because all during boot camp, I just knew I was going to Florida and I was just like, okay, I don't care what they tell me to do. I'm gonna sweat on this floor. I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna be in Florida. I'm gonna be at a beach. And a week before, like the graduation, I got told, "Hey, you need to go up to the I forgot what it's called, but just the front building." And my heart was racing. I was like, "What? I didn't do that. I did everything they told me to do. I didn't sneak any snacks. I had my bed sheet straight. What is going on?" And yeah, they told me I was going to Goose Creek, South Carolina. Nothing against anybody in South Carolina, but I was told I was going to Florida and I was just thinking about water and beaches. Even though I couldn't swim very well, I just knew I was going to be in some sunshine. Yeah, that was us.
I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, the bushes rustle out there. I never saw what was behind them, but yeah, it was enough to keep me in my barracks like I was supposed to be. Alrighty. So when did you attend boot camp and what did you like and hate about boot camp? Sydney, start us off.
So I dipped in June, July of '88. Um, I wasn't scheduled to actually go till like the following year. And then my recruiter contacted me and says, "Hey, you're going to leave a little early." And I was like, "What?" I had a plan, or I didn't say I had a plan. I had a plan to kind of live my life up until the time that hey, it was time to go to boot camp. So, and February 2nd of 1989, I was on deck. Had flown down to Florida, Orlando, like I said, Orlando, Florida, and dipped in or checked in the middle of the night. I had no idea where I was at. Never been to Florida before, or at least not to Orlando. And I started my journey there. Like I said, February 2nd of 1989 is when I officially started my enlistment in the Navy, even though I had dipped in like 6 months early.
Amber, same question.
Okay, so like I said, I went into Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training, and I think my favorite moment in basic training was it was the first time that it had snowed in South Carolina in like 11 years. And it just happened to snow that day, and we were on one of our really long marches. And I remember holding my rifle and the snow just piling up, because you can move a little bit, but it's pretty hard. So yeah, I just remember that snow piling up, and I was like, "Oh dang, I'm a soldier now."
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I probably would like call home. Like, you know what? No, it's safe for me. I like the soft portion of the snow. In
Mhm.
Mississippi, if something like snow is like an alert, this it's the ice. We get the ice. That
Mhm.
nasty. I know. Ooh, the
Oklahoma
nasty
too.
portion. Okay. So for myself, boot camp, it was June 1998. I was getting my independence. Everybody was so nice to us. We had just went out there when we got off of that bus. Oh, first of all, that was my first time on a plane, and it was storming. So it took a minute for me to get acquainted to a plane again. After that, it was Greyhound buses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, oh my God, I just knew we were gonna get struck by lightning. So, but yeah, that plane flight made me pray a lot. Um, so my favorite part about boot camp was I was in a 900 division, and we got to go to the parades and do performances. I was with the state flags. I wanted to do the rifles, but I think they saw that I was like a clumsy person. It was like, no, you're not throwing anything up in the air. And the thing I did not like about boot camp. Oh my goodness, the blisters I got on my toes from those boots.
Mm.
I actually had to go. What did they call it? Did they call it the ward? Where people go up? Yeah, they had the. Well, if your blisters or anything happened to you, they had like a space. Of course, those bunk beds. You would go in there. My toes got that bad. I had to go chill out.
Oh
But
no.
yeah, I know it was horrible. But then, okay, I'll tell y'all tips about that. But there's all kind of ways you can put cushions in your unique ways you can put some cushions in your boots. We're grown here. Yeah, I had to use maxi pads, those real thick ones, and they really help. The doctor's Schultz and all that stuff, no, because it absorbed the moisture and everything. As a
Oh
matter of
my.
fact, I need to go get a claim for how they messed my toes up. I had pretty toes. I could have pulled you with my pretty toes if I had. My toes look real pretty, but nah, they mess them up. They mess it up real bad.
There goes your career on OnlyFans.
There goes my career on OnlyFans. Listen, I'm trying to work remotely. commercial break. Amber, thank you so much again for being
You're
here
welcome.
through. I really appreciate the mentorship.
You're welcome.
When we come back, Sydney and I will tell our backstory. All righty.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop. And his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. He was the man of the house when he was born. His family is proud but torn. But if you knew him, you would understand. He was raised on how to be brave, just to see the flag still wave. And then he came home with only one hand. 'Cause Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on these front lines. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, he'll pay the ultimate price. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down his life. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
Introducing LT Defense Tactical Gear, your ultimate solution for top-notch protection and performance in the field. Our armor bundles provide unmatched safety and comfort, while our battle belts and holsters ensure quick and easy access to your gear. Stay prepared for any situation with our high-quality medical supplies, designed to keep you ready for action at all times. Looking to enhance your skills? Our firearms training programs will take your proficiency to the next level. Trust LT Defense for all your tactical gear needs and gear up for success on the battlefield.
Aloha. Welcome back. All righty. I want to give a disclaimer. Sydney and I will be talking about some sensitive topics related to past relationships, emotional struggles, and personal experiences that may evoke some strong feelings or memories. So I just advise you, if it does feel overwhelming, take a break. seek some help and talk it through. Your mental stability is very important to us, as well as Sydney too. If you feel like we're talking too deep, we can pause. Okay. All right. So let me put my disclaimer up. All righty. So when Sydney and I first met, both of us were going through some challenging times. At the point, we saw our connection as an escape from our problems. Looking back now, we realized that what we initially perceived as a simple attraction was actually a reflection of our deeper needs for understanding and support. Our belief systems at that time led us to think that finding someone else would solve our issues. We now understand that this was a coping mechanism. It was a way to fill that emptiness we felt. The trigger for our relationship was loneliness and a desire for connection. Sydney, would you like to add anything?
I would say from my end of it, um, when Charlene and I met, I was in a position of authority over Charlene. We were both enlisted, but in the same instance, so um, it wasn't like instantaneous or like it happened, whatever. But like I said, there was a bunch of stuff that was going on in my life. I was at the time married, um, and an abusive relationship, and uh, from the end of verbal and some physical, right? And not so much or not at all on my end. I didn't grow up like that. I never seen my father put his hands on my mother or any signs of that. Uh, but yeah, I was raised in a family. My mom and dad were married over 52 years before she passed. So, I understood that, marriage is a struggle and there's ups and downs. Uh, but, as long as you stay the course, it'll all work itself out. Well, um, I had gotten to the point, or I had been past the point, but I didn't see, I guess, a exit point, and I was scared to just jump out on my own because I had two sons, right? And I said, well, I've seen so many stories about women that stayed in relationships because of their children and everything else, and to give them a family and stuff like that. And I said, well, nobody would believe that, I'm in this abusive relationship. I was a pretty stout guy, 5'10", 225 pounds and less than, 8% body fat. So I wasn't I wasn't a small guy by any means, and nobody would ever think that I was being abused. So uh, there was a little bit of a macho thing, or, hey, a pride thing about that. So like Charlene said, when it was kind of, you know, Charlene was going through her things, and then she was kind of aggressive, you know.
Hold on, you sharing too much. Time out.
She was a little aggressive, but I was a little slow on the uptake. But long story short, it was mutual on both ends. How our relationship came about.
Wow. Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate that. You went to a very vulnerable spot, and I didn't coerce them. This was all, I don't force my guests to do anything, even if I had to change my last name for them. So I thank you for sharing that. Wow. That's brave. I really appreciate that. Okay. Um, take a breather. There was a lot to share. All right. And just for us to get in a space where we can be open like this, we went through a, a phase of arguments. We different transitions. We definitely had to have some counseling and definitely lots of prayer. Prayer definitely helped us because there were some times we were like, you know what, maybe we should just be co-parents. But um, that was all coming from that space of brokenness and not filling ourselves with the things to make us whole. Yeah, we saw that this relationship, this meeting wasn't just about romance, but it was about two people recognizing that same spirit of understanding pain and the need to heal it. But we just didn't have the tools at the time. Um, we have learned that true healing comes from within and that a healthy relationship is built on mutual support and individual wholeness. I cannot give Sydney the things he needs to be whole, and just as he can't give me the things that I need to be whole, but we can make space for each other. We can support each other. So, and just, that realization was what helped us transform our relationship into a space of where we are genuinely concerned about each other's well-being. I'm not saying I don't have any snapbacks every now and then, but we are genuinely concerned about each other's well-being. We can bring the apologies. We can take the space to breathe through things. Do you have anything you would like to add?
I guess. I mean, yeah, I would say, fortunately for me, and I don't know if it was just the fact that I was able to cover up or mask or put into Pandora's box all these different issues that I was hiding, because on the surface everything looked perfect, right? Uniform was in step. I was always, depended on, for assignments, and you know, it was like I said, when I joined the military, it was like, hey, I'm going to be at least to the level of my dad. He retired as a E8, but he made E8 at less than 9 years, which was unheard of back then, right? So I was kind of on a slower path, and I was a little bit pulled back on why I wasn't making rate, but a lot of it was due to personal things, and I think that was actually part of God's plan. And I'm glad my seniors may have seen that. Yes, he has all the attributes or the things that he could be successful, but there are some personal items that come into serving in the military, because you're also interacting or affecting other people's lives, a division of 50 or 100 or something like that. If you personally don't have it together, it can come out sometimes in your leadership and your integration within the mass, right? Because we're all one team, one fight type of deal. So yes, I mastered for a long time, but it came to a head, and it was kind of a realization that, I looked in the mirror one day and I said, I have no idea who you are. So I guess that kind of sums it up, and that became the journey of I want to say psychological help, therapists. I had, like, at one time three different therapists that I was seeing at one time for different points or aspects of my life, and even within the church. I grew up in the Catholic Church, you know, took communion, got confirmed. My mom was a Midwest, African American woman in Chicago, and they grew up in the Catholic, Catholic Church is a thing out there. Whereas the South, it's like the Baptists or something like that, and Christianity. And I will tell you that I knew everything about the Bible, but I can tell you that I had a heart-filled relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. So there is room for that also when you're serving in the military. Don't let nobody tell you that anything different.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Being transparent can take a lot out of you. We will go to a commercial break and share some strategies to give your partners that space to grow.
This is Who You Are by Barbara Sim. There's a story in every one of us, not one of them the same. There's something about the human heart, these hearts, they can't be tamed. There's something wild in us all, something stirring and untamed, like the flicker of a growing flame, casting light in our own name. Let it shine, let it shine, let it show just who you are. Let it shine, let it shine. Don't be ashamed of where you are. Like the storyline of a book, we all have to start somewhere. There's a challenge, something to overcome, something to make us turn the page. Every chapter, every line, there's a purpose every time. All the bad and all the good makes you exactly you. Let it shine, let it shine, let it show just who you are. Let it shine, let it shine. Don't be ashamed of where you are. So let it shine, let it shine. Let it show just who you are. Let it shine, let it shine. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Shine bright, shine bright. Show the world just who you are. Shine bright, shine bright. Be exactly who you are. Be exactly who you are.
Interview of the week sponsored by LTD Tactical.
Welcome back, my wonderful guest host over here, who I'm going to give a great cook meal to because he's just sharing and supporting people through. Retired warrant officer Sydney Baxter. So we're coming back and talking about some strategies to help us get to a space where we felt comfortable talking about things or even discussing using the word, hey, I'm feeling triggered, or I need some time away. I need to step away. Um, and we're still growing and still learning to how to understand each other better. But these are just a couple things we have used, in between the counseling and learning what works for us. And one of those things is creating a safe environment. And that is just ensuring that both of you, and so you and your partner, feel comfortable expressing your thoughts and experiences without fear of judgment, without fear of rejection. And that type of openness can help build intimacy and trust. So, Sydney, what is one of your ideas around creating a safe space?
Well, I mean, that's kind of hard for me. And when I say it's hard for me, it's not what you know. For a large portion of my life was based off of the military, right? And everything if I'd had a problem outside of the military, I reverted to that training in order to move through and ultimately complete the goal, right? Um, as we all learn or see, relationships are not complete the goal. Here, solve this issue, and all of a sudden now, or work through it through this phase of steps, and it will ultimately, hey, you'll get this end goal. Uh, there's a big variable that you can't account for, and that's the other person on the other side, right? And like Charlene alluded to, is that you know we all have our, I guess, our dark thoughts or thoughts that we have that may not align with the status quo, or what's readily accepted, right? And sometimes we feel like, oh, what's wrong with me, or I need to keep this under covers and everything else, right? Because that would shade a light, or maybe I'm not as I don't know, good as I thought I was, right? Or not necessarily bad either, right? It's just something that, hey, we're all different, okay? And for whatever reason, you know, maybe it was past experiences or something that I don't know, seen happen to somebody else that, put these things through, or kind of open the space for it through. But getting back to what Charlene was saying, creating a safe space. Usually, obviously, when I was engaging one of my subordinates, or juniors, there was no creating a safe space. It was, we're having a conversation. We're going to be here in this conversation until we come to a resolution. That, say, for a large part, doesn't work in a relationship. Once again, off the other things that I said before, there are variables, and that's the other person and their feelings and the fear of judgment. You're not out having a conversation, like you said, it's more of a dictation to this person, and then they respond, and then you dictate back to them, and then they respond, and then you dictate back to them. And nowhere in there are you finding a level ground. You're setting your, hey, this is how it's supposed to be, or this is what it's going to be. You need to meet these expectations, or this status, these quos, and move on, right? Well, yeah, that goes over like a fart in church. Okay. So it is what it is, right? And unfortunately, I mean, a large portion of our marriage, I went through that. And Charlene's a passive aggressive person, so don't think she's meek at all. She just had a different mode of getting into her aggressiveness, right? And yeah. So, and I don't think I'm just I'm not some altar boy or whatever. I found that out real quick. I have my dark side too, but I had to come, but that was because I wasn't coming to terms with those that darkness, or what I felt as darkness. I had a lot of shame behind that, but understanding it, and like I said, help with therapy, or there's, your people, somebody that you can trust to give you level, I want to say advice, just thoughts, right? And give you the opportunity to figure out what you're going to keep on your plate and what you're not, right? That don't work for me, or that really doesn't apply to me. A portion of that does, so I'll take a little bit of that, right? And the rest of it, no, that's not me. But long story short, now in creating this, as we, like you said, Charlene said, as we continue to grow, because every day we're changing, right? We see different things, we experience different things, and then, somewhere in there, as a couple, right, we have to give each other that safe space to grow, right? And not, I would take it as a threat to the relationship, right? What are you talking about? What are we doing here? Whatever. This is why we got together, or this is, and everything else. But as we talked about earlier in this podcast, how we got together was not necessarily the perfect situation or ideal situation. But what is the ideal situation? We're not the only ones out here with this story, and you see a lot of others that have that same, what's the name? They were making things before they had actually broke off other things, and then gave themselves time to evaluate and self-assess themselves, or heal, or gives themselves grace within themselves, or understanding, and some of that understanding doesn't necessarily come from our own thoughts. It's good to have a good core set of people that you can tell if they're like, man, that's probably not the best person to go ask about this, right?
I like that you say that. It is definitely part, and I think it's part of that safe space is, who are you receiving advice from? I know it's like, just go to your spouse, but if you're upset with somebody, you don't want to see their face. So, have that safe person, but is that person speaking life into your relationship, helping you understand the other side, or is it just tar and feather? Let's burn down the city, so just be mindful of where you're going to. I just want to jump in.
No, I'm sorry. I get a little long.
You're good. You're good. The more that we share here, I'm sure it'll resonate with somebody else. So that's what we're doing.
Very nervous about doing this. It was not. I told Charlene, I said, we're not going to have a Will Smith and Jada Pinkett moment out here, right? The red table and stuff like that, because that's not going to go over very well. But anyway, I trust my wife that she was going to keep me safe in this environment. Like I said, I'm out here speaking on a podcast. It's not something that I would do, even though my wife says I talk a lot. But I talk a lot to strangers, right? But it's not necessarily to folks that I know and stuff like that. And anyway.
I give him compliments too. All righty. We are going to go on another break, and we'll come back with more tips about making space for each other.
I think of me before the war, but that 24-year-old is just a shadow on the floor. I've lived and died in hell 8 times. I'm gonna take this last one and bring it to the light. No one sees the struggle behind the walls of war. Signs say all are welcome, but we can't get through the door. Tell me why no one here say. Tell me why you just choose to look away. Always still for what's right, when what's right isn't just fighting for a country that won't stand up for us. Sometimes I feel like giving up. Lay down the dreams I got and let them turn to dust. But I still got fire left in my blood. No soldier should be left behind or feel like there ain't enough. Tell me why we gotta beg for you to change. Tell me why you ignore the 88. Always do for what's right, when what's right isn't just fighting for a country that won't stand up for us. Oh, we lay down our lives, and you can't do what's us. Tell me why we gotta beg for you to change. Tell me why you ignore the 88. Tell me why no one hears the things we say. Tell me why you just choose to look away. Always do for what's right, when what's right isn't just fighting for a country that won't stand up for us. Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. Just stand up for us. Just stand up for us. Just stand up.
Welcome back. We're going to be sharing more tips about making space for each other to grow. That is something that Sydney and I had to learn in our relationship because we came in thinking that we could fill voids, and all we were doing was emptying out our shells even more, which made it just harder to be in that marriage. But thank goodness we had space to move from just even the shame of the relationship of how it started to like, what are we going to do now? How are we going to move forward? So just sharing steps. All righty. So one of the things that made me understand just the whole backstory of my spouse was when sharing information, being very transparent with it, you know, like we're trying to understand each other. So I need details, but as much as you have the bandwidth for. So the longer we were together, the more I could find out and the more compassionate I could be and an understanding of things that would trigger my spouse. Um, and not assume like, oh, he just don't want to talk to me. He don't got time for me. You know, just thinking the worst. Like when I get more information, I can be there or try to help you, you know, circumvent these things or discuss it. Sydney, what do you feel about that? Being the transparent storytelling or telling information about your past.
Well, I mean, like I said, what you hear right now, you wouldn't have heard 10 years ago or 12 years ago or 15 years ago, very reserved. Like I said, I grew up in a Catholic church and everything else, and transparency was just like, no, not going to happen, right? For various reasons, right? Um, like I said, it was for me a lot for the longest time. There was no gray area. It was either black and white, either it was right or wrong, right? There was no middle ground, type deal with me, and that's just how I want to say that's how I was brought up. Um, but my interpretation of things when I grew up, right? Um, and I used to get into things or get into trouble and stuff like that, and then I would ask myself, why did you do that? Doggone well, and you knew it anyway, but you went and did it anyway, right? And I would I would say I would punish myself harder than anybody else could, right? And for the longest time, I was going to hell, um, and there was just no grace for me to ever redeem my soul or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't out there killing people. I wasn't selling drugs, or I wasn't, but there are other things, worse things you can do, right? That, yeah, it seems like, oh, this is harmless, but you don't realize the harm that you were doing to others uh, emotionally, right? Until that was happening to me. Like I said, in my previous marriage, um, it was hard for me to cope with the fact that I, within my own self, I wouldn't physically, you know, hit back or whatever. And then even emotionally, I wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm not going to do something to emotionally hurt that person." But in reality, I was, right. Um, Knowing that I was married and everything else, and stepping outside of my marriage is like, "Oh, I'm going to get back at you." And that was, like I said, coping mechanisms are doing things outside that, and realizing you're just as, you know, um, you're not as perfect as you think. And you can sit there, well, I did this because of that. No, I honestly believe that's just, you're just making excuses for who you really are. Until you get to those points where you understand who you really are, you start to understand what situations to avoid. And that's what I believe Charlene's talking about when it comes to triggers, right? And sometimes we don't know what those triggers are, but we see the results of them because of actions, and then you're like, what? But you go through life and you're having these triggering moments, but you don't realize what the root cause of these triggers are. um, and that's mainly because you're just self-delusional, or just, like I said, once again, we base our lives, in this cancel culture and everything else, that if you say something that's out of the realm of the norm, or what people would think is the norm, uh, you are immediately ostracized, canceled, or sent to the bench somewhere and say, hey, whatever. You know, I didn't. A lot of things that I'm sure people have thoughts about, but they don't act on them. Right? It's when you start to act on them that you need to, take pause or be concerned. Right? Like I said, some of it's obvious, where you're physically harming people or whatever, but there's also emotional harm, right? And I think my biggest, saving grace, or not saving grace, but another thing that I felt this need that I wanted to be everybody's savior or Superman, right? Uh, who's going to save me? I couldn't be Superman for my own self, so um, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, that it's those fears, like I don't want you to view me different because of this, or and especially what we're taught, what we're shown as we're growing up in relationships. Um, I I think for me, it was like a picture painted that marriage is perfect. You're always laughing, you're always giggling. And when I would have an argument, it was like, should I even be in this? Just going to that because it's not appearing like how it appeared for somebody else, not knowing that they hid a lot of things from us. Didn't until like you're older and in America, yeah, such and such did this. Wait a minute. If I had known about that information that y'all stuck it through, I could have looked to you guys like, okay, if I want to see it through, I can have that instead of like it doesn't look perfect, so I shouldn't be in this. But yeah, definitely that self-awareness of those triggers, and the more that you can be open with your spouse, with this person that you have stated that you want to connect lives with and grow old together, or I should say, grow wiser together, um, it will open up things because trust is everything. You wouldn't give your credit card to anybody. So, your love and your peace, you should guard that just as much and give it space to grow if that's what you want. Um, so one thing that really helped us, especially when I was in that phase of like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's just not appearing how I think it should appear in my head, was getting counseling, seeking professional guidance. And that professional guidance is not a family member because family wants to pick sides. So if you are planning on forgiving this person, now they're like always got the stank face every time your spouse comes around. So be mindful of that. If you do want to work things out, seek that unbiased help. Um, Sydney, what do you feel about that?
That's absolute. I mean, you know, what your mother, your father, and stuff like that. Your stuff don't stink. So obviously, as much as they want to say that, oh, I love this person and I love them for you, they still have a bias, right? Obviously, and in the same instance, friends and stuff like that are probably not good sources, also, right? Because you don't know what they're going through, right? Um, but in the same time, they could probably there's little tidbits you can get out of because they may have gone through what you're going through, and they can tell you how they handle it, and you can be like, nah, that ain't me, or yeah, I can see some relevance in that. But like I said, Charlene talks about getting counseling. Counseling can be, like you said, now they have, like you said, never heard of a life coach, right? That's like something new in the what's the name? Everybody thought, if you're going to a psychologist, you're one step away from the crazy ward and taking pills and and sitting there and drooling on yourself, or you're not right in the head or whatever. But there's a lot of us walking around here with a lot of different little things that we could use a little bit of help in order to help us, go through life and or deal with these things, in which I keep referring to, those dark thoughts, right? That don't meet up with the quote unquote status quo, or what, how we view life should be or how things should go, right? So uh a lot of things that we see on TV, I believe were happening a long time ago. It's just with the age of internet and access to everything, we're seeing a lot more. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting long-winded again. Sorry. But yeah, I forgot what the ultimate question
Oh
was.
no, you answered it. I think you touched on it really good. Um, so thank you all again for showing up, coming over. Again, our goal is to be here to help empower you as we continue to grow. And thank you so much. I really appreciate that you came through. I would like to end with prayer. Father God, we thank you so much for the space that you're allowing us to grow in. We thank you for already giving us the stories of, hey, if you choose this way, this is the likely outcome. You have laid it out, but you're still giving us free will to live this life. But I thank you for the grace and mercy that you cover us with. And I pray that we can instill that grace and mercy upon each other and especially ourselves. We are appreciative for the ability to use our story, use any mishap, use anything that could be labeled as shame, use it as a message to help lift up each other, to help each other grow. So I want to pray for anybody that might have been triggered, that might have been, I pray that they have support. I pray that they're able to reach out to somebody so they can continue to grow and not get set back. So thank you once again for this platform. I thank you for what NBR is doing. I pray for all the veterans. I pray for all those that support them. And I pray for just everyone out there. So thank you, Father. We praise you and lift you high. Amen.
Amen.
All righty. See you next Saturday at 8 a.m. I might be better with my commercials, but I'm still going to be here. So thank you all. First podcast. Whoop. Thank you again, Warrant Officer Baxter. I really appreciate that you came through and you're very open. I really appreciate that. All right, you guys. Take care. Wave at the people.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.